How are you?
Togoza.
Togoza,
What is the
Togoza.
appropriate way to greet you?
However that makes sense to you. I just like Togoza because it's a jubilant salutation. So,
What
and
do you
it's
mean jubilant salutation?
I mean Togoza.
Yeah.
You know, what do you understand Togoza to be?
Happy. Jubilant.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So when I say it's a jubilant salutation, and when I say Togozan, it means I don't just greet all of you in the room. I also greet the people that you work with. Yeah, but I don't mind how even when people call me Dino, I'm fine. But I think I wanted Togoza and Togoza Gogo because I needed to change mindsets around the work that we do and who we are as African spiritual healers. So I became intentional about Togoza Gogo so that people don't feel off when one is greeted and such, because we have really lost a lot of understanding around how we do things and why we say things. And we've become, I think, moved away from the essences of certain things. But the more we do it and the more we have positive connotations to the greetings, to the name Gogo, then people can fully then embrace it.
Don't you find it, while we're still in the greetings, don't you find it rude to call you Dineo by, let's say, a youngster calling you by name? Because as a black person, it's quite rude to call someone by their names.
Well, I try be aware of what is it that you are triggering in me.
Okay.
Right? Because is it because you're disrespecting me, or is it because you have no any other way except to address me as Dineo? Okay. Because we also don't grow up in families that would teach us those things. So I can say, I rather than finding it rude, then see it as an opportunity to teach. I rather say, no, please call me Coco Dineo or Auntie Dineo. So I don't become offended, but I see it as a moment of teaching. So even when children call me, they either call me Mama Gaspusiso or by one of my children's names, or they call me Auntie Dineo or Coco Dineo. But I find it also overwhelming to be always called Coco Dineo, because Coco Dineo is my work. You know, so if I'm seen as Coco Dineo, then I need to show up as Coco Dineo every day, all day. And I can't show up as Coco Dineo. You know, because Coco Dineo is the spiritual teacher. Coco Dineo is the person that you were introducing on air right now. But I'm also Dineo. But Dineo as an elder to anyone who's younger than me, then there are preferences, you know. And because we can easily get offended, but sometimes people don't know. And we are the teachers that we are seeking. So let's teach our young ones to say, no, Mundum Dala, because my kids are not allowed to call people older by their names, you know. And actually, everyone is called Coco and Nkulu. Because that's the names we use all the time. You know, but Mkoko and Kulu just means elder and the wise elder. So that's what it is.
Okay. Coco, before we get carried away, it's such beautiful teachings to actually learn about Togoza and the introduction to it. Now, let's talk about the introduction to a calling. In what specific way does one actually find out that they have a calling?
You know, I like this kind of questions because how we've been programmed is to be cognitive thinkers. And when you look at spirituality, it's quite complex. So things don't appear in a linear sense where you can say, step 1, I found out I had a calling when this happened. Step 2, then this happened. And step 3, then this happened. It doesn't work like that. For a lot of people, is that there has to be a pattern of a discourse that you've had from since when you were young. So what we call an awakening, I call it an awakening because I like somewhat having a positive connotation to experiences, because how we perceive and think about things creates our reality. So versus that suffering, I'd say awakening moments. So what has been your lifelong standing issue, right? So I'll speak for me, for example. My long life-standing issue has been that I've always been an intelligent child. I've always worked hard and I've always given my best, but I wouldn't get what I give in, right? And that started to help me question. And I was a committed, dedicated Christian at the time. And I questioned God even to say, hey, but I go to church and I pay my dues and I'm a devoted Christian and I work hard. I was hardly ever in trouble as a child. So I wasn't a naughty child. I never went to a Street Bash. You didn't. I was born in the 80s. Yeah, you know, and at school, I was loved by my teachers but hated by my peers because I strived for education and I grew up in Alex. So I knew that my life was not meant to be No, I knew that my life was outside of Alex. This life that I was succumbed to, I knew that there was better. I always knew, even though I wasn't exposed to better, but there was something in me that knew better. But despite what I was told by the teachers and by society, that if you work hard, if you go to school and you get a good education, you will be X and X. Things never seemed to come right for my life. So things would always fail without explainable reasons. So how do we connect that to people who have a calling is when they have unexplainable experiences that science fails to explain, that society fails to explain, when something just goes amiss with your life, right? Here I am, I know I got my straight A's and I wanted to go to vets, but somewhat my application just seems to disappear.
Yeah.
It's not even about not having the resources for registration. When, things that are unfamiliar and there's no explanation, some people would say that I know I passed, but I cannot seem to get my matric statement or my matric certificate, which is what happened to me, by the way. So I did my matric in an American school. So when I had to get it, it just disappeared in the mail. We couldn't find it. It took me 6 months for it to come to South Africa. And the Americans in the South African educational system, we don't do the same school year.
Yes.
So the school year starts in August. So it means that by the time 6 months later, I was way off to apply for varsity anyway, because they were waiting for my final results for admission.
Yeah.
So when those unexplainable things are starting to happen, understand that chances are you might have the calling. Then you've got a manifestation of what we call calling symptoms, right? That would be medical. So let's look at the medical symptoms. Like people will say migraines, but it's not a migraine. It's a persistent headache that has you paralyzed, that you cannot function. So you can't even eat or drink or sleep. And you've tried anything else and it doesn't work. BEPS are common, and let's be clear, indigestion also causes BEPS. But the indigestion BEPS and the ancestral BEPS, you differ them in this way. When you are BEPing and the discomfort is not in your physical body, in your biology, it's just maybe a condition, because like, oh my God, BEPing is so rude, I need to say excuse. But it just comes out, it's just clean air, then you know it's ancestral. But when you feel like it's bitter and it's got acidity, then you know that you are indigested. So like, I'm gonna BEP anytime, anywhere in this conversation, and I know that I actually get Damascopas on my way here, so I haven't had anything and drank water, right? So when relationships seems to fail, intimate relationships, and I like it when people move out of varsity and they hit in their mid-20s and they're looking for stable relationships, that's when they realize they have a calling, because they go through a bad breakup. And they can't understand. Somebody called off the wedding, or they broke off an engagement, or Lobola didn't happen, and this is your love of your life. You met them at varsity. So what's going on? What happened here? And you realize you've always had the calling, because you struggled. You were smart, but you would pass out in class, or you see, I'm an 80s child, so I'm trying to think, what do they write on? Because they used to write on chalkboards. So the chalkboard will be blurry.
Look, we've gone digital.
Yes,
now.
we've gone digital, right? So I know my kids with online learning, I'm like, we used to write on chalkboards, not on iPads. So with relationship failings, unexplainable medical conditions, right, that would occur. And the big thing is that pay attention to how has your life been from when you realize you were alive. And what do I mean? That around the ages of 5, right? Because even your birth itself speaks and tells a story. And that's why Africans are so spiritually intelligent, because we read into everything. So when you say you have a calling, you don't come to me with a headache and I conclude it's a calling. I look at a collective of experiences, elements, diseases which have appeared in your life over a period of time that determines you have a calling. One important one that I say to people, even when they told they are called but don't experience it, is dreaming. Right? So dreaming is kind of like a gateway to the spirit world. It's the language of spirit.
Yes.
So if you are not dreaming, but you are told you are called, then how are you then expected to connect to the world in which is calling you? Right? So you need to start by either building a relationship with your ancestors or getting that world activated, because dreams are incremental. I mean, we see right now with the thing of the calling, it looks like everybody at twice again.
I was getting there.
I was
I
also
was
getting
getting
there.
there. You know, I heard
Do
you
I need to
talking
have this
about-
on? It feels weird.
It's fine if you don't want to have
Yes,
it on.
I
It's
never
fine.
do. I never do radio interviews with this on because I need to listen to myself as I speak.
It's okay.
Okay,
It's
it's
all
okay.
right. It's all right.
Thank you.
You know, you're talking about your education life and how you were a perfect child, and also Christianity being a part of that.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about society, the community at large, and how you maneuvered your way around them and made sure that they understand the different journeys that you are transitioning into.
I mean, I think for me, when you feel like you've had enough, like I think I got my life where I was like, no, man. I've ticked all the boxes. What's really happening? What's really going on? And I was in the middle of my theology studies because I wanted to get into ministry because I was good as a teacher
Yes.
or as a preacher. And I think some of my, eloquences and articulations were crafted in the church. And that's why I can speak so well.
Yeah.
So, and my arts background, because I'm a performing artist. So, and I was like, I need to understand who this God is really, right? And this was after a provocation by a Rastafarian man. And I tell the story all the time about what kind of God I believe in and why God doesn't look like me. I found that as blasphemy. I found that as offensive, but it was so uncomfortable that it put me on a journey to really then start to question everything that I was taught at church, everything I was taught at home, to really understand who was I as an African. Because here I am, I do know I'm black because my skin tone is that way, brown by the way. But who is then? What is my genetics? And that's when I learned about melanin. So I went on a learning quest and I started having conversations with God. And I said, if you really do exist, you need to start giving me some straightforward answers, because I'm not going to go around in circles and devoting my life to you, yet I'm struggling, because I struggled,
Yes.
I mean, I got kicked out of the school because of my mental illness. I almost lost my bursary at the American school because I was diagnosed with temporal lobe epilepsy.
Oh, yes.
But I didn't have epilepsy. Right? But that's the only
Science.
diagnosis they could get. And I remember going to Helen Joseph, and just the creepiness of the hospital buildings and being asked questions I had no answers to. Why are you hearing voices? What are the voices saying? And at my young self, how do I articulate the complexity?
And when you say
the
young self,
Yeah, I was 17. Right? And here I was programmed as a Christian, and it is a programming.
Absolutely.
Because you're not supposed to hear anything. You're not supposed to see anything. You're supposed to just believe everything. That's what religion does. So it was quite frightening for me. And I just said, no, but I keep on hearing people talking and they're telling me things. And yes, at the time, it felt like the things they were telling me were harmful, because also remember when you're hearing ancestral messages, when you're a hearer, right? When you're hearing them, when you have to speak them out, your own pre-understanding of things and preconditioning also comes into part. That's where they say the story changes as it gets narrated over and over again. So as I was trying to articulate and express the things that I was experiencing, I would only express those things in a language that was familiar to me. So it became scary. Because it was like, why is this deep voice talking in my head? But this was the male ancestor that I'm working with, or the male ancestors that I work with. Or why am I hearing them saying, you have to run? I'm like, run where?
I can't help but imagine that in the middle of the night, when you're coming out from a club and it's just a voice saying you have to run.
It's crazy. Or when I was in boarding school, right? And then I'd feel like screaming and shouting. And I do believe that, if science understood African psychology, it would really benefit mainstream psychology. Because I do understand that because of the gift, I've experienced a series of traumas, which is what I said earlier on. What is your suffering? I've experienced a series of traumas. Born in Alexandra, towards the end of apartheid, experienced sexual assault and a whole lot of forms of violence that most women succumb to in townships. So mentally and I guess psychologically and emotionally, there was distress as well. But had they understood that Dineo is probably distressed, traumatized child, but a called child too. Can you imagine that a collective intervention
Yes.
and the type of person society would have of me? I mean, it had a greater person after all.
Yeah.
But it took a lot of work for me to get to where I am, because you find that a lot of gifted people, even past their training, they become worse off than they were, because the trauma that occurred prior to them taking the journey of becoming a sangoma was not addressed. The process of initiation of being a sangoma is traumatic on its own, because you are taken out of a world of the familiar into a world that's quite unfamiliar, because we don't have classes from grade 1 where it's like, let's speak about ukupahla. So let's speak about impepo. So that is traumatic, because you are being invited into a world of the unfamiliar, and you might have grown up with a different belief system, and you feel like, I'm forced into this belief system because there's no any other way. I keep on failing, I need to pass. I'm applying for work, I can't get a job. My relation. So sometimes people do it out of desperation, and the desperation on itself is a trauma response.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
so I'm going to hold you right there for
Yeah.
now. We need to get into our news, the headlines with Umakosa Zanatwala. 11:30 is your time. We are in the middle of a conversation with Ugogo Dineo. We're talking all things ancestry realm.
She is celebrated as a Sangoma spiritual teacher, life coach, and a professional African storyteller, poet, writer, dancer, and a facilitator. If you have any questions for her, drop us a WhatsApp on 08407844912, or you can call us 011-717-9881.
Connect to the Wi-Fi. Is it okay?
Oh, it looks like we're better. Okay.
Yeah,
At Client Link, we create closers through our revolutionary sales training that will enhance your success.
It's not just blood, it's saving a nation. Thanks to your blood donation, help someone live a life filled with joy, love, and hope. Join us and donate blood at Wits University West Blood Drive marquee between David Webster and Bonnet Residence. Now, the date is on the 31st of August 2021. That's from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m.
The news headline on VAFM News this hour. Universities collaborate with foreign universities in an effort to revive and preserve indigenous African languages. And unions take back to Constitutional Court to appeal a labour deal dating back to 2018. We're back with your full news at 12 o'clock. For VAFM News, I'm Makosa Zanetwala.
My name is Mbeni Lomtaga. I'm the current SRC president. We encourage you to help us with our 21 Years of 2021 campaign. A campaign led by the BETS SRC to try and help students who are financially needy graduate, and not only graduate but access the system.
Am I also allowed to respond to some of the questions from my people?
Yes.
Okay. Because there's some questions here. Yeah, you're allowed to ask me questions, but I'll have to speak them on air.
COVID-19 is not
I think this is what we played at 11:30 now.
Oh, what is the symbol behind the fruit basket carried by Utogos? It's not a fruit basket, it's called umdundu.
At 11:30, and then we did the live read as well.
It's not a fruit basket, it's called umdundu. It is a basket, but it's umdundu, and yeah. Just want to know, maybe when I do wrong, I can't seem to last in a relationship. I have 3 kids now with my current father. Okay. Okay, we're going back now. Keep the questions coming. I'll respond on air. What's the difference between this tunya and ubutwasa? Okay, that's a good one. I like that. Epilepsy, okay.
And then you can just move it around. Whoever is speaking at that time will zoom into that ratio.
I achieved
sort of a list of things.
That's what I was trying to do as well.
I understand that it's to
I've
avoid,
always been told I'm crazy and I feel strange. Most of the times I was told about my calling in primary. Unfortunately, my family were Christians, so Yeah. Yeah. Yes. So- Okay, can you ask me after here? Okay, thank you. Because I'm reading your questions. Okay. If you feel like I haven't answered your questions, just keep on sending them.
That's Lunch Show every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. Only on Power FM 88.1.
We're going back now?
Oh, no, we're going to play one song and then we're going to go back.
Oh, okay. Okay, they're playing one song. So let me respond to some of these questions here. Dreaming of wearing a mapai, does it mean one has to toss? No. It's not just a pai, because certain clothes are not about ugutwasa. Some clothes that you see have to do with your ancestral lineage. So you might be dreaming of a Swati cloth because you thought you are Zulu Ganti, your lineage is Swati. So, or there's a ceremony or a rite of passage ceremony that you need to undertake or undergo through, which you will receive those bais. So amapai on their own are not a symbol of Gutu Fanulu Twase. Remember what I said earlier on when I began, that it's a collective of things. And sometimes we dream things because we consume them. So there's a lot online right now that everybody's engaging with. So be careful of your dreams, because it could just be things in your subconscious mind, okay? Yeah. How do I go through these questions? Okay, what does it mean ukukhuphukela idlozi? Well, it differs from one practitioner what they mean, but for me na mengithi liphakeme idlozi lakho noma likhuphukile, it means it's at the stage in which way you need to start initiating. So khuphukela idlozi, the signs are when you go into a trance state, and the trance state can look like you are having an epileptic seizure, but it's not an epileptic seizure. When you're feeling like you're moving out of your body, when you're starting to cry uncontrollably, you are starting to speak in a language that you don't understand, or you are mumbling things. So when you start to have those experiences, or when things all of a sudden just go boom, there's a downfall of everything, you lose everything precious to you, you know ukuthi idlozi seliphakeme. And when you start to have clearer vivid dreams about your gift, it's also idlozi lakho meseliphakeme. So Koko, I was told I had to go Twasa. When I consulted, I was told Ingomos Zami, they are incomplete, and my great-grand was not lobolat and needs her cows. So in this case, my wedding had to be postponed. Well, we work differently. I don't believe that we are held at hostage by the deaths of our ancestors, because if we were not there are rituals where one can do to appease that request, because gune ritual called ukushweleza ngesixhosa kuthiwa kuyanxenxezwa, so rikupa maitshwarelo. So there is way ungalukhunga lelo dlozi. So it doesn't mean that everything of yours have to stop now that your grandmother was not lobolat, but you are not the one who's supposed to lobola them. They are coming forward because they might be hindering a healthy marriage moving onwards. Therefore, it is important for you to do some sort of ritual to appease that ancestor. But in the appeasement is to also plead your case, right? Is to say, I wasn't part of it. And it's a responsibility of the elders also to do right by the ancestors if they are still alive. So you can't stop everything because now the ancestors are wanting this. I don't believe we are held at hostage by our ancestors. I believe it's a co-created relationship. Remember, ancestors don't have a body, so they can't come and just demand without meeting you halfway. They have no body. They've got the intelligence, they've got everything, but no body. So they need that body. So it should be a mutually beneficial relationship. We're going on? Yeah. Okay, we're going back. Hey.
A very perfect song for what the conversation we're having today. Luzilami, DJ Opstan, Kusazana, and DJ Freeds in the building right here on VFM 88.1. We're hanging out with Gogo Dineo. She's celebrated as a Sangoma spiritual teacher, life coach, and professional African storyteller, poet, writer, and dancer and facilitator. She's in the building. If you have any questions for her, drop us a WhatsApp on 084-078-4912 or call us on 011-717-9881 at ViFM on your socials.
Right. So before we went into our news headlines, you mentioned during your the storytelling that you inherited a male ancestor.
Yeah.
So we just want to know specifically when it comes to that, when you inherit a different or an opposite sex, how does it play out? Does it have a pattern behavior in terms of the way you behave?
Okay.
A pattern difference? And also looking at maybe internally, testosterones maybe, is there also an imbalance or is it just something different compared to that?
So when we say inherited, sometimes when we translate words from our indigenous language into English, I don't think it's an inheritance. Ngoba kuthiwa ungenwe idlozi in isiZulu, right?
Okay.
Meaning actually, then you have been possessed by idlozi, meaning the spirit or that made. So for me, majority of my ancestral guides or the ones who have come with the gift are male. But ironically as well is that the dominant spirit is female, right? And I've been learning that over the past 2 years that the queen that rules, it's a female, it's a she. But it feels like I needed to have the males show up first. And also the males showing up was a way to protect me from the toxic masculinity that I've experienced growing up. I spoke about experiencing abuse as a child. Then I did somewhat adapt a masculine demeanor as a way of protection. So when I walk on the street, nyabamba, I still do. I don't know how to, right? And when I speak, I still have certain masculine mannerisms, But I understand that it was I could have easily thought I am, I'm not heterosexual, and I always say to people I'm heterosexual now. I don't know, because I believe I evolve. I don't know. I can never say that tomorrow I fall in love with a woman and I'm like, hi, but I said. And that's what the gift of spirituality is that nothing gets cast in stone, but you've got, certain principles that are governing and guiding you so that you're not then doing everything and killing in the name of spirituality and hating in the name of spirituality. So when I also believe that they themselves who possess us are also wounded and seeking healing through us. So when we experience ancestral, the calling, we're not only healing us, but we're healing a lineage of our ancestors. Because I'm realizing his own pain, his own torture and torments, the betrayals he had to experience. And I look at how my life outplayed itself and the betrayal and the torture I had to experience. So by healing me somewhat, I'm also healing them, and by healing them, then I'm allowing for my divine feminine to emerge. So it becomes complex because when you begin the journey, you don't know how to separate yourself from all of these things, and sometimes you can't. It's about how do you find synergy and a dance, between your masculine and your feminine, because even in our nature, we are both female and male. We've got testosterone and estrogen. It depends what is more dominant. And that's why heterosexuality is no longer a thing for everyone, because they might be born of a particular sex, but then because of not only they are homos, but other things, then they present themselves as something else, And I see that a lot in our work as izangoma. But the danger becomes when people do not truly want to own up to their sexuality at when people don't want to truly own up to their misbehaviors. I'm an alcoholic. I'm like, ngeno mkulu tagwayo. Hold up, mkulu. This is my liver. These are my kidneys, And I rarely drink. I'm not a drinker. I'm not. So when I have lelo dlozelfika alpuza, sometimes I have to ask it to say no, because it's my body that's gonna take it all.
Yeah.
So I want people to also understand, Guti, in Lozi world there's no gender. Gender constructs do not exist. We have created them for our human conceptualization of identities, but it's really not. It doesn't exist because it goes in our care because you're a female, so ngidlozi lendoda, I'm gonna go to you. You are seen as befitting to be a holder and a vessel for the gift which it's being passed on you. And by the way, this is a conversation for another time. I believe we created soul contracts with our ancestors and agreed to getting the gifts and the calling. So when we are suffering, we are being reminded of what we are failing to honor. Because remember, before we are born, we are spirit. So at spirit, we understand the ultimate truth. So we make all these agreements. And yeah, hey, when I do not agree to the calling by the age of 21, I would like to experience this incident or this misfortune as a reminder of what I said. We all are here. We are all are called. We all are going through ukutwasa process, because some people will say, so does it mean minitlos namlang twasisa? We are all going through ukutwasiswa by our own life experiences. But when you are gifted to heal other, you cannot say, I am gonna I'll be self-made. It means you need a mentor. You need somebody who can hold space. You need somebody who can actually help you put things into perspective. So what do I mean? Because we don't all twasa to become healers of the other. We just twasa to heal our own lineage and ourselves. But we don't twasa to be. But when you're saying, I'm going to heal other people, who's going to help you be accountable to the practice itself? Because I see a trend again of people, I'm in a bayang to assist, but the next thing you want to be a trainer of other people. But you are never trained by other people, so why do you want to train other people? So it's the same way as that you can never say, I am a doctor if you didn't study medicine.
Yes.
You can have a natural inclination, intellect of understanding biology. I think that's also a skill I have, because I understand biology, but I cannot claim and say I'm a medical doctor. I have to go through, because there's a vetting process that qualifies me as such. So similar to those who are saying they're going through a process, do not qualify. Somebody has to qualify you as such, because you went through a process of training and initiation. And let me explain initiation. It's a rebirth, shedding off the old.
Yes.
And as a healer, part of your work is to actually deconstruct your false sense of identity, ego. That's why you go through Gutwasa. So even when you're working as a healer, you're not self-serving. You are working for the betterment of the collective. So those who I find that bias twasis or batamatlos, bias twas, they then become quite pompous. You know, even the people who go a patient for 3 months, I don't subscribe to 3 months, and I've said that because the first 3 months is an adjustment of your new life as an initiate.
Yes.
So, but they come out as, it's the ones you will always see, I'm so powerful, my muti and my processes, and I'm the, you know, they become quite arrogant and egotistic and self-serving. Then it doesn't meet the requirements of you of being healer, because healer is facilitator, and you know, as a facilitator you hold space. Then how do you hold space for others if it's about I?
I'm going to quote you here. You said when someone is dreaming, that's when you communicate with the spirit world. And you say in the Lozi world, there is no
Gender.
Yeah.
There's no gender, race, color.
Then why then there's Gogo not I hardly hear Umkulu in the Lozi people say Umkulu.
And I think we need to be honest, and I'm going to take credit. I made Gogo happen.
Okay.
Because when I started with this work,
credits.
I'm taking the credit. I made Coco
Take the
happen,
credits.
you know, because I think that's part of my healing, actually. Because one of the things is because I'm so fearless of, but I made Coco happen, because when I went, my first interview, I was asked, how do they refer to me? And I said, please refer to me as Coco Dineo and right? Then the more I occupied media, mainstream media, the more Coco became. Then everybody can now say, I'm Coco so-and-so. We'd only hear of traditional doctor or traditional healer. We would never hear somebody, I made the title.
Yes.
No, I didn't initiate the title. I just make the title more acceptable and that people can carry themselves. There are Mkulus as well. So for people, when they come when they come and experience my work as a Sangoma, they refer to me as a Mkulu, not Koko.
Yeah.
So the teacher
That
is
is
Coco
a
Dineo, but
conversation.
the healer that the forefront man is Mkulu. So my patients refer to me as Mkulu, most of them, and my ancestral kids call me Baba. My grandchildren call me Mkulu. I even have a great grandchild, so I'm a great grandfather. I'm old, eh?
Yeah, no, you were speaking about the 80s there. We heard you.
No, but a great grandmother, I mean great grandfather in my 40s. But in the Lozi world, that's a high accolade to be a great grandparent, because it means that you've got your own village now, you know, or you've got your own bande. It's exciting, but it's also scary, because you can easily change the rules and move away from the essences that keep the work together. Because for me, innovation is important, because my work as well is I've innovated Bungoma, because now everybody can have a show about it. People can record a single hit and call it Titlos Namlia Pila. Whereas before, it would be something that people would be afraid about. How is the market going to receive it?
Yeah.
Because our association to Lozi was demonic and was evil. So we need to be truthful about those things and give credit where it's due.
And I wanted to go there. You're talking about people hiding behind ubungoma when it comes to their sexuality. People
Yeah.
hiding behind ubungoma because of their drinking
Yes.
habits,
Yeah.
and also touching on how it has evolved since then. It was known as a dark thing, practicing. It was known as, witches were also burned down because it was something that was
Yeah.
familiarized as a dark thing altogether. Now, how do you then separate between people like that in life that hide behind ubungoma to do what they want to do instead of just practicing in the right manner? Because you find that people will go to 6 different people to consult and
Yeah.
get different things. And at the end of the day, you find yourself not doing the right thing
Yeah.
when it comes
Yeah.
to your
I think
ancestors.
it's a two-way thing, right? Because I always say to people, your life is your responsibility, and you can't put that responsibility in the hands of any practitioner. And when you go for a consultation, you are not signing up for a lifetime agreement to be working with that practitioner. So the minute it feels uncomfortable, get out, walk away, right? And when the healer starts to threaten you and tell you you're gonna die and you don't know my people, then you know it's good for you that you are gone. But you will still need to do work to protect yourself from any spiritual attacks. So it's when people hide behind that, it's not only Izangoma, we all hide behind things and excuses as I just love my wine. But when your wine when your wine becomes your life, it's a problem. But we are a traumatized nation, and that's why if you listen to me speak, right? I speak of the intersectionality of spirituality, because you cannot speak of Ubungoma and not touch on mental illness. You cannot speak of mental illness and not speak about wellness and health, because there's a lot of people who are biologically ill because of the thoughts they keep on replaying in their minds. We understand that anger, if unspoken and not processed, leads to rage. Rage is resentment.
Yes.
Resentment can get you cancer, because cancer is your cells being attacked, like your healthy cells being attacked. And science sometimes sees it and sometimes doesn't want to see it. And then that's when we speak about metaphysics, because metaphysics helps us think in connections, in a much more interconnected approach than in a singular approach. But that's why we are in quantum physics now and not in mechanical physics. We've moved away from Newtonian thinking. Even Ebungomeni, we need to be quantum physicians, meaning that to see a patient as a complex entity. So when you're coming to me and you've got a calling, I shouldn't just be excited about initiating you. I should be curious about how do I restore you back to health.
Absolutely. Yeah. We've got 9 minutes left with Gogo Dineo. Drop us a WhatsApp on 084078491. So it's very tense in here. What do you want to say? We have a call up what goes by the name of Papi. Papi, good morning and welcome to the area code.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
We are well. What's your question for Gogo Dineo?
I'd like to say good morning from Sunil. How are you?
Tell girls I'm cool.
I'm good.
Hey.
It's been a great one to hear you, right? So, and I was going to go to bed in a good mood if it wasn't answered. And it's mainly based on the process of reincarnation, right? And according to the alien religion, we believe in reincarnation, which is the process of dying and being born again in a different body, and this process keeps on going on and on and on until a person becomes liberation. And it is also said that these people who are in the state or in the cycle, they come back to try and fulfill the purposes that they wanted to fulfill in the past life. So would you say that a calling is some sort of reincarnation, some sort of process of reincarnation. Because as you said earlier, that you can have a calling and it would be a male ancestor or a female ancestor. Would you say that these ancestors are coming back just to fulfill a purpose that they wanted to fulfill initially? And then once they fulfill this process, they finally give chance to another ancestor.
Okay, so I'm gonna quote Maldome Petrisome, who is a West African spiritual healer, and he's the one that actually took African healing into the West. That was part of his calling from his ancestors. He says an ancestor is one who has all the spiritual intelligence, the know-how, and the power to create, but yet had no body. So they are limited. And then we have the body, but sometimes lack the spiritual intelligence because we then get trapped in the body and the mind and not deeply connect to the spirit. So what the caller has just said, it's an end. It's a reincarnation and something else. Because if we just focus on a reincarnation, remember when the soul reincarnates and it fulfills its purpose, it departs. It's done. So when death occurs, because that soul purpose has been fulfilled, it's painful to us because human beings are attached to attachments, to physicality. So it's done, your purpose has been done. So does it mean when you twasa and you heal a particular ancestral wound or lineage, not necessarily be twasa to heal others, do you die? Not necessarily, because it could be that you are yourself. Like I know I'm a reincarnated soul. I mean, I've just recently discovered that I've lived many lives, and many of my lives, part of my torture was I was persecuted for being a healer. And I think that's why I've came unapologetically as a Sangoma and would stand my ground on it, because maybe this time I'm like, this ain't happening again. And I'm not gonna stand it. So we need to understand that we have lived many lives, but in being shamans or healers, it means that we can also carry many other lives. So it is my soul coming forward, but I have space to allow for this soul to come too, and this one to work, this ancestral spirit and this ancestral spirit. That's why I'm saying that I spoke about quantum physics, and I said, let's not look at things from a mechanical thing, because when we start to we can be so aware, so spiritually intelligent, but unwise. Right? Because wisdom is something different from intelligence.
I agree with you.
Right? I always say my definition of wisdom is that wisdom is cultivated through life experience, and you cannot have it unless you've lived it.
Yes.
Whereas intelligence, you can sit in a classroom and consume it.
Inquire,
And you
yes.
can read and consume it. And for you to be deeply wise, you require both elements. So we can be intelligent, but in our intelligence, we can also be separating and see things as black and white, whereas spirituality is about black and white, not black or white, not male or female. Is that I am a female and a male. I am both. And how do I dance with those two energies of the masculine and the feminine? I mean, I came in pink today because when I was getting ready, because I prepare my clothes before that, I'm like, I'm gonna go and feel the feminine. Then I was not being directed, and the masculine in me was very present, and that's when I came into studio, I needed to express. I didn't appreciate that being misdirected, because then I can't come and show up here. But by speaking it, I've released it, and here I am showing up in what I needed to show up as.
Absolutely.
So that's what is important for people.
I'm just going to wrap it up with the last question. You're talking about getting dressed and feminine side of you coming out, and also being upset, and then you've got Umkulu coming out. I just want to say, how do you differentiate? How do you keep it, the energy?
Yeah.
You're coming into studio, you've said your piece, and now you are you again, and you are coming back, and you're giving us Gogo Dinero at her best, and giving us all this information. How do you do it? How do you
It's
keep the
continuous
balance?
work. I think we need to also start to prioritize soft skills work. I'm a big advocate of working on yourself as an asset you are building for anything else in the future. Healthy relationship, productivity at work. We need to prioritize working on ourselves, because I can easily come here and project because I got triggered, because it was uncomfortable. But I felt uncomfortable. but because I'm aware of what happened and what was going on, when I come here, I can say it and let it go. It's done. We're not going to speak about it again. But if I'm not aware, it sits in my energy field. Then when it sits in my energy field, it becomes the rest of my day grumpy. And I cannot afford to have the rest of my day. Fanele ngiyothenga amashoba, ngiyathwasisa manje. So I cannot have, because by moving with this energy and then the rest of my day is miserable. So we need to do body check-in. Check in with your mind, your heart. I woke up and I looked at something and Instagram triggered me. I journaled for 30 minutes. I was writing my feelings down this morning. Journaled. And then I looked at the time. Already I'm ready to go. I'm like, okay, I have a time. I read a book. Then after reading a book, I did a meditation. Self-care work is important. And self-care work is not doing your nails and eating nice food. It's doing the hard work.
Very important.
It's doing the hard work, and that's what you do. And that's how I've learned to work with the masculine me. Because the masculine me was so brutalized and betrayed by his family. So he carries a lot of wounds. But I realized our wounds are quite similar because I've carried similar wounds in this lifetime. So as I heal, I'm able to say, because I spoke to Gogo who picked me up and I said I didn't appreciate it. But I could have said, how dare you do that? Do you know who I am? I am Gogo. I'm quitting this interview. And trust me, it happens to me too. I get those moments, but I'm aware of what I'm feeling. So I'm like, it's not necessary. Thank you, Dineo. I can feel your frustration. I acknowledge that the aspect of me that has. So when I speak with kindness, and my words are impeccable. Not all the time, but I'm doing the best. And when I work on myself, I do better. And as I do better, as I work on myself, I know better. And as I know better, I do better, because I'm a big advocate of being better versions of ourselves, because we are all part of a society we are dreaming of. We need to change us, and if we don't change us, it's not going to change.
All right, so in the interest of time, that's how we wrap it up. I think I got more mental health than what I was anticipating for, and it's nice to understand that, even on the ancestral side of things, mental health is just a huge umbrella.
Yes, it's
not
very,
just,
very important.
Yeah, I think, wow, definitely a shout out to Gogo Dino. That was amazing. Short-lived interview, but it's time for us to get out of here. Thank you so much to Gogo Dino for joining us. Maybe just lastly, where can people catch you on the socials?
On the social, all my handles are Gogo Dino, Ndanzi, but also, can I create a boundary? You do not DM me to ask me questions. You pay for my services. I've done the teachings.
Money talks.
No, it's not about money talks. It's about we need to value our lives, and we don't value our lives and respect that what I do is a profession. Angiyenzi ngoba ngiporekile, ngiyenza because ngiyasebenza and ngiyayithanda.
Thank you very much, Gogo Dineo. Thank you very much. Now, that's how we wrap up Area Code, the last Wednesday of August. What a beautiful conversation. I think this is one that we would definitely have to podcast. So if you've missed it, do go on our Iona.
We're at VowFM.